Drug addiction is no joke. It's a subject that's been making waves lately, and it's not hard to miss. Just look at how often we see pipes and smoke in rap videos these days. So for someone like Lil Pump, who became a global rap star in his teens, he had everything he could ever want: money, fame, and the world at his feet. But behind the scenes, he became a drug addict, even dropping the song Drug Addicts, which glorified substance use and abuse. He was using it to cope with the stress of his new life, and his addiction quickly spiraled out of control. Now, the young rapper's often in the headlines for his wild antics, drug use, and repeated claims of quitting it. Let's take a look at his story and trace it down to how he ended up where he is today. Lil Pump's struggle with drugs. Gazzy Fabio Garcia, aka Lil Pump, is an American rapper and songwriter known for his hyperactive public persona, where he is often portrayed taking drugs, particularly marijuana, lean, and Xanax, most commonly seen on social media engaging in what most people would term as unwise behavior. Pump was born on August 17, 2000 in Miami, Florida, and began rapping at the age of 13. He released his debut album, Lil Pump, in 2016, and the album's hit, Gucci Gang, got certified double platinum by the RIAA. The song was a success on SoundCloud and helped launch his career. In 2017, Gucci Gang peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The album was a commercial success, reaching number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart. But beneath all the good stuff, Lil Pump was basically just another young guy dealing with addiction. It actually began earlier than you might think. It's mostly said that he started using Xanax and codeine cough syrup because his friends introduced him to them. This sort of thing often leads to addiction over time. He got hooked fast and started using drugs a lot. It's not even a coincidence that he has a song about it. He put out Drug Addict in 2018, not long after admitting he had a problem. So it kind of went together with the previous year. But nobody ever said getting clean would be easy. After Lil Peep tragically overdosed in November 2017, Lil Pump and his friend Smoke Perp, who was going through something similar, made a promise, like a commitment, with a bunch of other fans on Twitter. They decided to stop taking Xanax as they headed into the new year. Lil Pump, in a post, all happy and excited, wrote, "In 2018, we're gonna go even crazier, love you all. By the way, I don't take Xanax anymore. Yeah, you heard it right, no more Xanax in 2018. That's a pretty bold statement. Smoke Perp also tweeted that they were leaving Xanax behind in 2017, and Travis Scott, Huncho Jack, totally supported it. He retweeted Smoke Perp's tweet and added his own take. "This tweet made me happy. A collective push for change, you could call it. Oh, and you know Twitter is never short of interesting responses. People started joining in the comments, declaring their own plans for the year. From knitting to eating celery, they were game for anything. Well, almost anything. But Xanax was officially off the table. But it seemed like that was just for the media. Lil Pump couldn't quit his bad habits because addictions are really strong, and just talking about them isn't enough to make them go away. That same 2018, Lil Pump made headlines due to his music video for his song with Charlie Sheen, who is a pretty well-known drug addict. The scene of Charlie pushing a drug-loaded cart in a shady hospital was enough to rev up anyone watching. Lil Pump's drug use caused a lot of concern among his fans and critics. Some people worried that he was going to end up like other young rappers who have died from drug overdoses, like Mac Miller and Lil Peep, and their stories were pretty sad ones too. Lil Peep's overdose death in November 2017, linked to substances like Xanax and fentanyl, was a wake-up call for many within the hip-hop community. Mac Miller, too, the ex-boyfriend of music goddess Ariana Grande, was known for his introspective and relatable music, but he also fell victim to substance abuse. Despite his immense talent and popularity, he struggled with substance abuse issues for years, and tragically in September 2018, he passed away from an accidental OD. How about Juice WRLD? Pump had to pay tribute to him in one of his concerts by not playing his anthem, Drug Addicts, with respect to his condition of death. But it wasn't just Lil Pump and Smoke Perp who made the announcement. A whole lot of rappers seemed to be reawakened after the death of Lil Peep especially. Lil Uzi Vert also denounced Xanax. Since he was a drug user, it was easy not to judge Lil Peep's decision even though it backfired. The next day after the sad news, he took to his Twitter account to declare his sober day, which fans hoped would be the beginning of a new life forever. However, Pump has since said that he was sober and that he was committed to getting help for his addiction. But on December 14th of the same year, things got a bit rocky for the rapper. He and his manager found themselves in a situation involving a flight from Miami to LA, and it didn't go as planned. Now, according to law enforcement sources, it seemed Pump's side of the story checked out. The baggage handlers who were loading luggage into the plane's compartment noticed a strong smell of weed coming from a bag with Pump's government name, Garcia, on it. The pilot got involved, and the situation escalated. Pump felt like he was being blamed, and things got so tense that the pilot ended up kicking both Pump and his manager off the plane for disruptive behavior. But the tension continued when cops talked to them in the terminal, and that led to their arrest for disorderly conduct. But when officers opened opened the bag, they couldn't find any. It turned out the bag belonged to someone in Pump's crew. Back in 2019, Lil Pump made a hopeful choice to get his life back on track by giving sobriety another shot. He put it out there on Instagram, and lots of people felt it. They saw he was ready to tackle his drug problem straight up. For a while, things seemed good for a bit, and he stayed off drugs for a few months. 2020 was even more tumultuous. That was not the beginning or even anywhere near the end. Fans became worried about his mental health as he made several erratic and concerning social media posts that seemed to be spiraling out of control. In one post, he claimed that he was going to commit suicide. In another post, he said that he was going to quit music. After interventions from his management, he confirmed that he was going to go sober. Everybody hoped for the same thing because aside from his history with drugs, Lil Pump is actually a pretty talented rapper with quite some intelligence. But he couldn't pull through. His tour DJ Big Head even quit the tour that was supposed to hold the next year due to Pump's drug use. But that wasn't the only reason. Big Head was also an addict and was deep into the stuff, but was smart enough to realize that he wouldn't be able to do the tour, so he quit.
Now looking back on it, it's like, it's so terrible. I'm like, all these, there was young boy sessions I'd go to and like, I'm not fully there. I'm like, I'll pull up because I have to kind of do this, my job, and I'll quit, but I'm like always in the bathroom and I'm running around, and I'm like, okay, I got a jet, I gotta go home. Like, right. I could have been fully present there and soaking it.
That's not all. He even called it a disease.
It's like any person that was in my situation, they would have soaked up the moment, took an advantage of it, and I was just like, no, just like, I gotta do some other shit. That's when I know I'm like, I have a different, like a disease.
Big Head's decision to quit the tour was the big red flag. But since Lil Pump has not been arrested or involved in any public altercations since 2020, he may be on the right track to sobriety, because right now, it's been 2 years since the last drug banter from Lil Pump. But contrary to what you may have been expecting, he's been really putting in the effort to diss the drugs and probably cut some weight. Last year, he shared a video where he's seen working out with a personal trainer with his 2017 track Boss playing in the background, adding a bit of musical motivation to the mix. But this journey toward health and wellness didn't just start now. Looks like Pump kicked off his path to better living back in 2019 when he announced live on his Instagram that he was done with drugs for good. He straight up said, "Yo guys, I'm making an announcement. I don't sip no more lean at all. I don't do no more drugs, all that." Lil Uzi Vert was all about it, saying working out definitely helps me with my performance, and I think that people that's probably, stressed a lot and going through stuff, they should work out. He was one of those rappers who made the resolution alongside Pump and Smoke Perp to leave drugs behind back in 2017. He explained how he's one of those folks who gets caught up in their own thoughts and it makes him feel a bit bonkers. But through exercise, he's able to shed all that anxiety and frustration. Lil Pump's rise and fall. Well, the truth is, we didn't always know about Lil Pump. He wasn't always a star, but he had to start from somewhere. So let's look at Lil Pump's meteoric rise to stardom. It all started with SoundCloud, the platform where many young artists have begun to popularize and sharing their music. You can call it the Wild West of the internet. His SoundCloud tracks started gaining traction like wildfire. One of his earliest hits, Lil Pump, was catchy and a hit sensation. It became an anthem for his generation because lots of people were vibing to his music. After all, it was raw, energetic, and basically a big middle finger to traditional music norms. But the real game changer was the track Gucci Gang. The song was everywhere. It was short, punchy, and had a super addictive chorus. It was like Lil Pump managed to distill the essence of the new SoundCloud rap scene into a single song. And the icing on the cake, it became a meme. People couldn't stop chanting Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, even if they didn't know the rest of the lyrics. So it wasn't surprising that it peaked at number 3 on Billboard's Hot 100. With Gucci Gang blowing up, labels came knocking. Lil Pump signed a major record deal with Warner Brothers Records, and suddenly he was in the big leagues. He was no longer just a SoundCloud sensation, he was a legit industry player. And with his unique style and catchy hooks, he was hard to ignore. His fame and stardom continued to rise, and Pump started rubbing shoulders with bigger artists. Collaborations with folks like Kanye West on I Love It and Lil Wayne on Be Like Me cemented his place in the mainstream. He transitioned from being just a favorite to being a household name. Social media played a massive role too. Pump was a master of the internet, and he knew how to use it to his advantage. He was making headlines on social media too. His Instagram and Twitter were like his own reality show. He'd show off wads of cash, boast about his escated lifestyle, and pretty much live stream his life to his fans, much like an open invitation to be part of his wild ride. His colorful and wild antics, like flashing stacks of cash and shouting his catchphrases, got him attention. He became this larger-than-life character that you couldn't ignore. And just like that, Lil Pump went from a SoundCloud rapper to a full-blown star. He was living proof that you didn't need traditional gatekeepers to become famous. He had his finger on the pulse of what his generation wanted, and he served it up in his own unique way. Now, his rise wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Of course, what's stardom without a bit of drama? Pump had his fair share. He got arrested a few times, which, believe it or not, actually added to his mystique. He was the embodiment of the live fast, die young, rebellious, carefree spirit of his time, and people couldn't get enough of it. Like with any artist, there was criticism. People pointed out that his music lacked depth and that it was repetitive. And you know how the internet is? Once people start pointing out flaws, it can catch on like wildfire. That negativity directly impacts an artist's reputation and popularity. Pump, in an interview on Complex, said, "More people love me than hate me." And I'ma say this right now. Everybody who talked in my comments, every single body, I have never to this day seen one person walk up to me and say that in my face. Everything is on the internet. Nobody has ever walked up to my face and said nothing crazy. So this not even real. It's fake to me. You know how Gucci Gang turned into a meme? That gave it some cultural street cred, but you know how trends go. They're hot one minute and cold the next. As time moved on, the meme frenzy kind of simmered down. People started paying more attention to the actual music again. If the beats and lyrics weren't packing that same punch, well, the whole thing could lose its mojo. Pump was a teenager when he burst onto the scene, but as he got older, his priorities changed. He was no longer that reckless kid with a devil-may-care attitude. He even began exercising. And while personal growth is awesome, it can sometimes disconnect an artist from the persona that made them famous. However, Pump's career took a nosedive in early 2020 after he was dissed by several rappers, which included Chief Keef, Lil Xan, J. Cole, 6ix9ine, and others. These disses all contributed to Pump's declining popularity. Fans began to see him as a joke, and his music was no longer taken seriously. Pump tried to respond to the diss tracks with his own track, Butterfly Doors. He got in trouble for saying racist things about Asians in a preview of his new song, using bad words and stereotypes like Ching Chong and making fun of Asian eyes. This got a lot of bad attention, and even Chinese rappers dissed him in response. On December 24th, he said sorry in a video on Instagram and changed the bad words in the song before releasing it. However, the track was not well received and did little to improve Pump's reputation because of the racial slurs. The diss tracks were too much for Pump to handle. He even announced his retirement from music in July 2023. Might have been a joke, but we haven't seen much of him since. In a way, he said that he would quit rap if he didn't win a Grammy, and he also made homophobic and racist remarks. To worsen matters, Lil Pump announced that he was creating an OnlyFans account, the subscription service where users pay to see exclusive content from their favorite creators. Pump's announcement was met with widespread criticism, with many people accusing him of being a sellout. The criticism intensified when Lil Pump released a preview of his OnlyFans content. The preview showed Lil Pump with another woman in sexy and enticing positions, and many people found the content to be offensive and immature. His OnlyFans announcement came as a surprise to many people. He had previously been known for his hardcore rap music, and his fans did not expect him to create an account on a platform that was known for its explicit content. It's rare to see artists indulge themselves in political concern. Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential elections would have been shocked to gain support from Lil Pump. This was a surprise to many, as Pump was known for his party lifestyle and his often controversial lyrics. Pump's decision to support Trump was reportedly motivated by his opposition to Joe Biden's tax plan. Pump said that he didn't want to pay more taxes and that he believed Trump would be better for the economy, but that decision didn't go well and was met with mixed reactions. Some people praised him for his willingness to speak his mind, while others criticized him for aligning himself with a controversial figure. In the weeks leading up to the election, Pump continued to campaign for Trump. He even appeared at a rally in Michigan and gave a speech in which he praised the president's record. He also released Lil Pimp Big Maga Steppin', which was a song in which he rapped about his support for Trump. On election day, however, Trump lost to Biden. Still, Pump continued to express his support for the former president. He even made a statement about leaving the US if Trump didn't win. Yo, no cap. If Trump does not get elected, I'm moving the out of here. I'm going to Colombia. Months after the election, Pump continued to make headlines for his controversial behavior. He was banned from flying on JetBlue Airways for refusing to wear a mask, and he was also involved in a physical altercation with a security guard at a nightclub. Pump's support for Trump, however, divided his fan base. Some people praised him for his outspokenness, while others criticized him for his political views. He lost about 300,000 Instagram followers because of that. Since then, it's been a downward spiral for Lil Pump. Is hip-hop bad for kids?
As members of the hip-hop community, we need to take responsibility for the things that we say. We need to recognize that the that we talk about influences children.
Whether or not hip-hop is bad for kids is a complex question with no easy answer. There is evidence to suggest that it can have both positive and negative effects, especially the negative effects. On the good side, hip-hop lets you show who you are and feel strong. It helps you deal with your feelings, figure out who you are, and speak up for yourself. It can also teach you about important stuff going on and how to stand up for what you believe. But there's a flip side too. Some hip-hop songs have words that are violent, not nice to women, or even about drugs. These things can be really bad for kids, especially if they're already having a hard time. Plus, hip-hop can be super addicting. Some kids get so into it that it messes up their school, friends, and other stuff. You know, it's wild how so many people are ODing on prescription drugs now. It's like, we hear about it way too much. Just look at Lil Peep and Mac Miller. They're recent examples that really hit close to home. Their stories could have made lots of people think twice. All these artists talked about addiction, feeling down, and even suicide. Maybe listening to this stuff made their own troubles worse. Sure, hip-hop itself isn't bad, but the way some people live because of it isn't so good. Some artists rap about cool things like loving yourself, staying strong, and making things fair. You know, it's tough to control what kids listen to these days. We can't always watch over their choices, but we can help them make smart ones, especially when it comes to hip-hop. So why does this even matter? Take a look at Mac Miller, the rapper who sadly passed away. He used to sing about his struggles with addiction, feeling down, and even thoughts of hurting himself. In his track Grand Finale from his album Faces, he rapped about his fear of overdosing on drugs. His songs often delved into these heavy themes. He spat out lines like, "I only go places wasted like I'm Joe Namath, not a king. I'm no David, music, I'm a crackhead. No hobbies and recreation, don't even know my address." Another song of his, Self-Care, from the album Swimming, tackled his attempts to overcome his demons. I've been losing my mind, yeah. Get the heck out of the way. You need to be really high to play. But it's worth pondering. How can someone truly overcome their struggles when they're constantly singing and talking about them? Mac Miller's real-life issues with substance abuse were apparent too. He was arrested for driving under the influence in May 2018 and tragically passed away in September 2018 due to a combination of fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol overdose. His untimely demise shed light on the darker aspects of hip-hop culture. And then there's the case of Lil Peep. His death in 2017 became a turning point, igniting discussions about the dangers of drug use. It was his death that opened up the first ever massive declaration of drug denouncement in 2018. After celebrating his 21st birthday, he died from an overdose involving Xanax and fentanyl. It was a wake-up call, a harsh reminder that mixing drugs with music can lead to tragic consequences. Moving forward, there's the story of Juice WRLD. The sad pattern of young artists facing similar fates in a short period is alarming. And what's common among these tragedies? A connection to drugs and the hip-hop scene. Juice WRLD's song Lean With Me from the album Goodbye and Good Riddance openly spoke about his addiction to codeine cough syrup, delivering lines like, "Lean with me, pop with me, get high with me if you're on my side, smoke with me, drink with me, messed up liver with some bad kidneys." This is concerning for young listeners who may look up to these artists as role models. Juice WRLD, with his influence, was inadvertently shaping the way kids perceive drugs and their effects. His track Lucid Dreams from the same album revealed his struggles with depression and thoughts of suicide. It was unfortunate that his death was the result of an accidental drug overdose. For someone already struggling with drug addiction, the events leading up to his death began when he and his entourage were traveling on a private jet. The federal authorities were alerted that there were firearms on board, which is prohibited during air travel. Upon landing, both the FBI and FAA agents were waiting to conduct a search. During this time, it's reported that Juice WRLD began to ingest several Percocet pills, presumably in an attempt to hide them from the authorities. Unfortunately, this action likely played a role in the tragic outcome. The combination of oxycodone and codeine, which are both powerful opioids, can lead to respiratory depression and other adverse effects, potentially resulting in overdose. After the search, Juice WRLD experienced a medical emergency. Paramedics spent about 40 minutes trying to stabilize him, focusing on restoring his heartbeat to a regular rhythm. He was then rushed to a nearby hospital. However, despite their efforts, he was pronounced dead shortly after arriving. The sad thing about this is that kids keep seeing how most of these hip-hop rappers end up. It's like a cycle of rising to fame from a single track that blows over the internet to becoming overly addicted to drugs, not wanting to continue school, and possibly becoming retarded or end up dead in some way. Some of these rappers may indeed have had traumatic experiences that were enough to push them off the edge into drugs or substance abuse. Young M.A. is an example. She pointed to the death of her older brother, Kenneth Marrero, who was attacked by gangsters, and it's possible she had to deal with it alone and in her own way, but there is no evidence that she has ever struggled with drug addiction. Using music as a means of escape is a common norm because in her song Ooh from the album Her Story, she raps about her depression and anxiety, part of how she was dealing with her brother's death. It's a struggle out there. Everybody has one or two things to battle daily, but how you go about it matters because there are eyes everywhere. everywhere. In 2018, when Fredo Santana joined the bandwagon to stay off Xanax, he wasn't in denial of the fact that his heavy drug use was due to the traumas he endured during his childhood and his struggle with PTSD. The impact of his addiction on his health, including several seizures, was widely documented. Santana's struggles with drugs were not just confined to his music, they were palpable in his personal life too. In March 2017, Santana got really sick and had a seizure. He thought it happened because he was working too much and not getting enough sleep. Even after taking medicine called Keppra, the seizures didn't stop, and he often had many in a row. Later in October, Santana had to go to the hospital again. His friend Gino Marley found him having a seizure at home, and he was bleeding from his mouth. The doctor said Santana's liver and kidneys were not working well, and it was because he was using drugs like Xanax and leaned too much. While he was in the hospital, Santana said he wanted to go to rehab to get better. Then, on the night of January 19th, 2018, around 11:30 p.m., Santana's girlfriend found him at home, unresponsive and couldn't wake him up. A little later, the doctor said Santana had died. He had a really bad seizure that caused his heart to stop. They checked his body and found out that he also had a heart problem and other health issues. It's painful to watch a loved one die because, as superficial as it may sound, these rappers dealing with addictions have loved ones rooting for their sobriety with the hope that they come out of whatever it is they're struggling with, just the way Fredo's dad came out to emphasize. Vic Mensa's statement on hip-hop rappers constantly making their music about violence and drugs has framed the rap culture of addiction and substance abuse. But if these deaths and talent wastage would reduce in the future, and the right approach taken in rap, younger generations would be saved from this menace. Lily Pump knows he's got a problem and seems like he wants to fix it. He keeps talking about getting clean, so maybe he's serious. He could bounce back as a rapper, but his addiction might mess things up too. We'll just have to wait and see. Click on the cards on your screen to get stories like this.